A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you are having a pleasant day. It's great to be back again this week with another episode of the Strata Talk Show. With that, I would like to welcome everyone to the 38th episode of the Strata Talk Show, brought to you by the Excel Academy of Real Estate. In this talk show, we'll be discussing issues and cases related to the management of stratified developments with various industry professionals. Joining us today, we have Mr. Kuan You Wai, who is the director at PKN Building Solutions Sendihan Berhad, to speak on the topic of building condition survey for property managers. If you have any questions for Mr. Kuan Yu Wai, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, which will be addressed in the Q&A section at the end of the show. Without further ado, join me at welcoming Mr. Kuan Yu Wai. Welcome, sir.
Hello, nice to meet you. So should we go to the slide? Okay, thanks for the invitation from Excel Academy. It's my honor to present to you today on building condition survey for property managers. Um, I just a brief introduction to myself. Beside this topic, I also speak in interflow leakage EMR 504 product and system for the protection and repair of concrete structure, and the defect management of uh, including patent and latent defect. So I'm also a committee in the CIS 7 for the QLASIC assessment, a committee in CCC, Way Forward CCC in Ministry of Housing, as well as I also work as an investigator and expert witness in the court and tribunal. I'm a certified uh, infrared inspector, and I also is also a certified non-destructive inspector for concrete pathology uh, by Board of Engineer Malaysia. I'm also a regular author in building inspection, building defect, building pathology, building resiliency, and earthquake hazard. So just a brief introduction about myself. Hey, we'll talk about building condition survey. Basically, is how often the property manager should go down to the field to do assessment to your building. It's a general health check. The objective is to ascertain, the first rule, the first duty of JMB and MC is building safety. To identify the potential hazard, monitor the condition of the building, life cycle management, and asset valuation. So, the Malaysia Property Management Standard number 3, building condition report. During when the property manager first receive a new building or hand over a new building, property manager shall carry out a general visual inspection audit to establish the current state of the repair and condition of the building. So this is actually written by the board, the BOBIAP, for the condition or the requirement of property manager to conduct building condition survey. So, but you are required only to do visual inspection, and in the event that an expert is needed, you can the standard actually written in such a way that at the own cost of the JMB or MC, you can recommend and appoint a third-party expert to come in to help you to completely understand the condition of your building. Okay. So, who actually conduct building condition survey? Now, property manager need to conduct it. Of course, building surveyor, architect, engineer, specialist tradesman, leak detector, or even scientists actually come down and do specialist inspection, in the event of complicated issue. Well, the first duty of JMB and MC, of course, the property manager, is building safety. This is stipulated in the Act 757 as well as Street Drainage and Building Act, whereby the JMB or MC, the owner of the building, are required to keep the building in good repair, safe and functional state. I am showing you this photo is to tell you that yeah, you have a very heavy duty of care. The standard of professionalism based on the literature in law will be similar to the what most of the people or property managers ought to have done in in similar situation like yours. But frankly speaking, when something happened, this is not really true, because like let's say in the event of collapse of Champagne Tower South in Florida 2 years ago. This situation, the GMB, the property manager, even the building inspector, the building engineer who came to inspect, even the engineer from the local council who say that the building was safe, now they're all queuing up in the court to be queried. So I'm telling you this because in reality, if something happened, uh, this is not really true that the standard of professionalism will be similar to what most people should ought to do, but you need to actually travel extra miles to make sure your building is safe. Due diligence for property manager. Always ask why it happened, what is the correct way to repair it, uh, what is the preventive measure, and do you have enough fund for all this rectification and inspection and monitoring. So when is building condition survey needed by the property manager? As I mentioned just now, building condition survey can be a threshold for performance. It can be a key performance indicator for the performance of a property manager. It can be also required if you have defect. The defect could be structural and could be non-structural, could be due to fire, could be due to order from the authority, or some premature or latent defect. Just for your information, in your Strata Management Act, there's no provision that can allow you to use the uh, sinking fund or maintenance fund to rectify defects, especially defect that is left over by the property manager. You actually need to pursue or follow the SOP for patent defect in the event of before the expiry of DLP, and Limitation Amendment Act for latent defect after the expiry of DLP. And if you have a huge construction next door, you are also required to closely monitor, to take more diligent step to monitor all the crack prior to the uh, construction work next door. And if there is natural disaster like earthquake trauma, or let's say landslide nearby your area, you will also need to have take more precaution to take a closer look to the condition of your building. So uh, how long each building component should be monitored? There's no guideline in Malaysia, but I found one from Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a place which, of course, is a Commonwealth country, and it is a place in the urban area where everyone are required to come down to the ground floor, according to my friends. Not enough land for people to stand. So anything that happen to the building will be detrimental to their people. As a result, Hong Kong have very strict guideline in the maintenance of their residential and all the buildings. In fact, so these are the list of items that need to be monitored. For instance, external wall painting, 4 to 5 years, you have to check one round. Do you need to do painting? All this is a list of items that you should check based on different periodic, interval. And Microsoft project can help you to compile a schedule for different type of inspection. And all this you have to. There's no standard format. It all depends on the condition of your building, the age of your building. So a PowerPoint project project management will be very helpful in this case. So the list also continue for electrical installation, 1 or 2 year, or even some of them fire safety installation, even on a weekly basis. So, but something that I want to highlight to you now, we have a lot of problem with water tank nowadays. My conversation with some of the former COB actually told me that this is in fact quite common because our water tank most of the time is subjected to weathering, meaning that is subjected to rainfall, is subjected to the sunshine, and polymer material or metal material will degrade rapidly in the event of weathering, especially if you are close to the industrial area. The acidity of the rainwater will even accelerate the degradation even faster. So as a result, we have a number of issues nowadays with water tank burst and collapse the wall. In UK, Australia, and Singapore, is recommended, is actually make mandatory nowadays in some country that all the water tank need to be inspected once a year. We have the ROV, remotely operated vehicle, which actually look like a submarine, a mini submarine that can travel, that is connected to a wire that you can see, what is inside the tank clearly. And this is actually in line to what is recommended by the Ministry of Housing, KPKT, and Ministry of Health, because the condition of the water is is actually a issue with the health as well because it's consumed directly. Secondly, the sludge that settle at the bottom of the water tank is actually heavier. If the sludge has accumulated so much so that it becomes so heavy that the design of the tank can no longer hold it, or the tank metal strap already start to corrode, or the screws start to corrode, or the underwater fittings start to corrode, the strength actually start to reduce and compromise, and that is why some of the water tank can actually give way. So I would suggest you for water tank nowadays, especially in Malaysia, you please there is a need to have regular monitoring for water tank. And of course, there is different format when it comes to how a report should be done for building condition survey. There is a format from JKR, Royal Institute Surveyor Malaysia, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor UK, as well as a format from the DBKL. This is particularly for periodic inspection. Uh, there are a few type of inspection. The protocol, or the level of inspection. Firstly is visual inspection. Second level is non-destructive testing, and third level three is destructive inspection. Destructive inspection means we need to start drilling or hacking, or start to open up the place for further verification. So non-destructive testing, on the other hand, use scientific equipment to do testing or to look into the defect using scientific principles. And of course, in all the building condition survey report, these are the typical things that you should have in your report. Of course, the date, location, the person in charge, the type of building, the weather condition. Weather condition affect very much about the inspection and the findings, because yeah, a lot of building component actually is it actually changes or deteriorate according to the weathering. And who is the complainant? What tool is used for the inspection? Actually, in my type of report, I even have to clearly describe what is the methodology of inspection, and scope of inspection, next action. This is particularly important for property manager because the next action, okay, and who is the person in charge. These are the details that you need to have when you do follow up. And I always encourage property manager to have a few simple testing tool like this, or inspection tool like this. Moisture meter, it have one anode and one cathode. If you put on the surface with water, then the circuit completed. The more water on the surface, the more electric conducted. As a result, you have a linear uh, relationship in between the reading as well as the amount of dampness. And this is very useful. And it can be used for even doing bonding tests, flat tests. Before I do bonding test, I will take a moisture reading one time before and one time after 24 hours after the bonding test, using a moisture meter because it can quantify the dampness, and I have a figure for comparison. Tapping rod is very important to check hollowness and corrosion start from delamination. That's why when we check corrosion, we actually start by checking delamination. As a result, tapping rod is very useful. And because water can conduct electric, so before you put your hand on any wet area, please have a non-contact voltage tester to verify that the place doesn't have electric. This is for your own health, own safety. And a pressure gauge like this can verify the pressure in your domestic pipe. Bear in mind, Suruhanjaya Permata Air Negara have a guideline. The water pressure should be between 10 meter head to 30 meter head, or 0.98 bar to 2.94 bar. This is something that you have to keep on monitor, because in the event that you supply unsafe water pressure to the unit and the pipe burst, management kena bayar. Oh, okay. So, and of course, crack width ruler, based on British standard 8110, any crack width more than 0.3 mm is structural crack. Of course, on structural element. Okay, so all these are simple equipment that doesn't cost a lot. Maybe the most expensive one is the X-Tech moisture meter, which can cost around 300 ringgit. But the rest is not expensive. So I would urge the property manager to have this equipment with you to closely monitor your building. So next is the building condition report. Of course, building condition report, you need to have a floor plan to indicate where do you do the inspection. So in my type of report, let's say for a house, I will indicate photo number one or defect sheet number one is actually corresponding to the number one in this floor plan. So defect sheet number two is the second location. So, and Baris rating. Baris rating based on JKR format. It actually gives grade to the building component which is under your assessment currently. So is it good? Is it very good, average, critical, or very critical for repair? So these are the rate which I will elaborate more in a while. Okay, and this is the rating. This rating talk about the course of action. Is it normal, or does it need regular monitoring, or does it need repair, or how fast, or does it need reinstallation or replacement? So all this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as compared to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the condition, when you multiply it, it will give you a sum which can be used as a indicator of the overall condition of the building. So I will come to it now. Okay, this is let's say just now level of maintenance and level of physical condition. So level of maintenance means does it need to be replaced now, or is it just a regular maintenance issue? So it has different numbers, and as compared to the different number assigned for the condition of the building, when you multiply it, the different number actually give a different rating. So in the second table, for the rating condition, action matrix and score, So it gives an indication of the condition of the whole building if you sum up all the items together. Okay, so this is how my report look like. This is the JKR report. Okay, I think I'll go to this JKR report first because JKR report, this is the it have column and columns for narration as well as a column for the photo. I find this format doesn't offer enough space for the photo. As such, I modified the format to maximize the area for uh, photo. And let's say the first one. First one, I put all the detail from the at the top and at the bottom. Center, I keep the maximum space for the photo. And this modification, so long that it work for you, is fine. There's no fixed format for it. And this format I actually use for one shot or one time inspection. If for the purpose of monitoring, you can have more detail. Let's say opening date. When was the first complaint? When is the closing date? Closing date means the rectification have been rectified. The case must be should be closed. The diagnosis, the cause, the suggestion, the the score can be also included, and I even include a small floor plan to indicate the location so that I don't need to go back to the page with a lot of location. Is for the easy reference purposes. So my point is you can modify the format to your own need. So long that whatever the information that you would like to monitor is all systematically written there. Okay, and in my kind of report, I will also have a conclusion about the overall assessment, the overall summary, and I also can do a chart in this way to tell what type of defect or problem or issues that is mostly found in your site. So with this, an overall picture can be given. So this is about the format of the report. Okay, and I also have big space to do a narration or summary of what is the next action. At this location, this conclusion and recommendation, I will can have the space, the luxury of having sufficient space, to do all type of explanation for the typical type of defects. This is the format of my report. And I would like to come to bring your attention to life cycle management and building safety. So 10% sinking fund. From my conversation with a number of property manager, 10% sinking fund is the requirement, the mandatory requirement set during developer regime, whereby developer become the property manager before the formation of JMB or MC lah. So okay, but for your information, this is minimum. It's not the maximum. In fact, based on the list that we came across or I explained just now, we need to do the asset listing. We need to know the life cycle management by way of understanding when are these building components need replacement or refurbishment or redecoration, and we need to do a projection, a project management chart to see in 10 years which year I need to do my painting, which year I need to replace my lift, so that we can have an overall understanding of the expenses, capital expenditure that will be coming in 20 or in 10, 20 or 30 years to come. So based on the collection of our existing sinking fund, does the sinking fund uh, is it sufficient to cover all the capital expenditure? Because bear in mind, the first duty of JMB or MC, building safety. Okay, so you need to make sure you have enough fund so that in time to come, when the building component need replacement or expenses, the money is there. Okay, that is for the purpose of keeping the safety as well as the functionality of the building. And I would like to show you a useful chart that I got from the research study in North America. This is a list of the building component, the quantity, the useful lifespan, and the remaining useful lifespan, current best and current worst. What is the meaning of current best? Okay, in let's say when the let's say the genset or the lift, when is time due for replacement? What is the most positive or optimistic estimate of the expenses involved? And what is the minimum and what is the maximum, So the maximum is the current worst case. That why we use the the word current, because we need to factor in the inflation and to rediscount the amount to see if the collection that we are collecting at this amount or this percentage, will that be enough to finance all this capital expenditure in future? So I would also like to bring your attention. Nowadays, we have so many new technology. Artificial intelligence is coming into building survey industry. So nowadays, we have artificial intelligence, which is integrated into drone, spectacle, or even handphone that can recognize the building defect by themselves. So long that we give them good enough training to know, okay, this temp patch is a defect due to dampness. So the computer actually can recognize it. From the statistical study, they can recognize it faster and more accurate than human. So infrared imaging is also coming into the building condition survey industry. See, this is how the artificial intelligence can detect defect by themselves using drone. And of course, I would like to show you what are the typical defect that a property manager should look for when the building start to age. Let's say the leaking, the rust, construction joint must be replaced regularly. The crack, some are cosmetic, some are not. So efflorescent if is at the stairs, it's actually very dangerous. It's very slippery one. Okay, so all this you have to start to look at your site. Okay, and of course sealant on the skylight roof is something that you should be understand that it need replacement over time. Water tank, at least check the screw and nuts, from outside. Uh, the abrasion, the crack, the root that can cause the uh, road to crack, as well as delamination. Delamination always happen because of the way we construct building that doesn't come with construction joint or expansion joint. So the expansion and contraction in Malaysia, we always have this type of uh, heat-induced crack that can endanger the public and the user. So tapping rod is a very good tool to check all this. Okay, this is something that you need to look at. Before the arrival of raining season, check your drain, any blockage, any crack that water can seep through. Check the slope. These are the things that you should always check. Swimming pool, always leak in Malaysia. Please check, And most importantly, the M&E room must not have leakage. Okay, nowadays we have a lot of leak pit having groundwater seepage. So all this must be looked into visually by a property manager. And copper tape for your light arrestor always gone lost, right? So also always check on your copper tape. Oh, okay. When is the time that you need an expert to come in? I would like to bring your attention to high water pressure. High water pressure is synonymous to high blood pressure, because the higher the pressure, the higher the likelihood the pipe will burst. And I would urge property manager always have a pressure gauge assembled by your people to monitor the water pressure at different location in your building. Just simply tap into the faucet or hand bidet, you can measure the water pressure. And bear in mind, pressure reducing valve need to be serviced clean. The diaphragm need to be replaced regularly. So depending on your manufacturer, please contact your manufacturer for them to do cleaning and servicing, and ask them with this model, this brand, how often do I need to clean and replace the diaphragm of the pressure reducing valve. And if you have the situation whereby you have the banging sound or the sound in your from your pipe, it's actually due to the uh, momentum caused by the movement of water, which is suddenly stopped. So this momentum can be so huge at 600 pound, and you actually need a pressure, uh, water hammer arrestor to handle this type of situation. So, and when there is corrosion, when there is seepage to your concrete, when there is mold, you do need specialists to come in. Okay, because we need scientific tool to measure the corrosion risk using half cell corrosion mapping method. And I would like to show you. Okay, the first photo, you have some sign of dampness but no cracking, no rust. Quickly repair it. The repair is still cheap. Okay, but if you start to have rusty sign, the rust restart, the reinforcement steel bar will expand, and it will keep on expand in this corrosion process up to 6.25 times of the original diameter. As a result, the crack actually come from inside. For your information, before any repair, the mechanism of cracking must be stopped by using cathodic protection, sacrificial anode, or corrosion inhibitor. So when you have the third stage, whereby the crack has been so obvious, the lamination has started, the cost of repair is even higher. And when you have spore concrete, the cost of repair will be so high because corrosion must be stopped. The mechanism of cracking must be stopped before you re-waterproof it. Simply because engineering fault or cracking mechanism, if it is not stopped, the warranty is null and void. Another type of things that is dangerous, shear crack. Shear crack is very dangerous. Any structural engineer will know that. But um of course, corrosion induced crack is also dangerous. Crack at the center of the beam, from top to bottom, is also equally dangerous. For all this, there is a British standard BS 8110 that say that if the crack is more than 0.3 mm, it is a dangerous or a structural crack that you need to bring in a structural engineer for review. Pillar. Pillar is the column, are the building component with maximum taking the maximum load. Any crack or deformation is not acceptable. So when you see this type of crack, do get in a structural engineer. Uh, and building is not designed to float on water. And the pH and the mineral substance in the groundwater or water that emerge from the ground, it can be wastewater because waste pipe is always embedded into the floor. We can understand the origin of the water by doing a lab test. So we can check the pH We can also check the E. coli if it come from the waste pipe. If it come from domestic water, then the chemistry composition must be very close to the domestic water. And lastly, if it come from groundwater, it depends on the type of rock inside the soil. If you have a lot of limestone, the pH is highly alkaline, no corrosion will happen. The issue is if it have chloride, if it have uh, other chemical that is corrosive, then corrosion will be very bad. I would like to bring you to attention to this purity inspection because actually, yeah, 2 days ago I met an unusual crack on a pillar, and I advised the building manager Kat that she can opt to trigger a earlier purity inspection by writing to the Jabatan Kawalan Bangunan Building Control Division. So, writing to them to tell that you want a purity inspection, you feel something is wrong, you are so worried. Okay, so by writing to them, let's say in the eighth year, eighth year of your building, okay, tahun ke-8. So you get all the purity inspection done. You engage a register structural engineer, register to the board of engineer. So everything is done. Let's say in the 10th year, the Jabatan Kawalan Bangunan send you a letter to request you to do periodic inspection. You actually can show them this letter saying that I have written to you for early inspection and I have done it according to your SOP, and now I should be exempted because I have just done it in the year. So in the 10 years, yeah, your letter I received, but I am telling you that I'm exempted because I have done it in the 8 years. So the next periodic inspection should be 18 years later. So by this way, you are actually saving money. Secondly, the inspection come in two stages. First stage, visual inspection. Second, after the visual inspection, the engineer will have to write to the Jabatan Kawalan Bangunan to say that if the building is safe or not safe. If he, if the engineer feel that some test is needed for further understanding of the deformation or the cracking, then the building control division will help you to review all these tests to see if it's really needed. So if it's really needed, they will reply you with a letter to proceed with the testing, and you actually have a free service from an independent party to help you to see do you actually need all these type of tests. Uh, at the end of the day, based on Street Drainage and Building Act 1974, mayor or the Jabatan Kawalan Bangunan is the sole party, the sole authority that can tell people about the building, about the condition of your building, safe or not safe or otherwise. So please do not hire any structural engineer just because they are structural engineer, you just hire them. You actually indeed you have a SOP to follow based on Street Drainage and Building Act. Okay, so do not simply engage, but um, I can help you. I can advise you who can do a very good job on this. And Ministry of Housing recommend EM 1504 when it comes to diagnosis and repair of concrete structure. EM 1504 encompass the repair of concrete as well as corrosion control. It is a holistic and scientific manner to do structural repair. So in the event that there is a corrosion or cracking like this, we actually did rebound hammer testing as well as half cell corrosion mapping to see if the corrosion has started. We also do carbonation tests using phenolphthalein solution to check if the carbonation has entered into the reinforcement steel bar. All this is based on scientific method, which is based on some Euro norm or American Society for Testing and Material Standard. Okay, this is what EM 1504 recommend. So if you have crack You need to see if it is a dynamic or a static crack. We can install a crack monitor. We can also check the crack pattern inside the concrete using echo impact, okay, as well as doing chloride penetration tests to check the chloride contamination in your concrete. EN 1504 also recommend scanning of the reinforcement steel bar using ground penetrating radar or cover meter. Nowadays, for ground, we can also do tomography. We can do scanning of ground up to 50-meter deep, 80-meter length. Okay, if we do it cross in this way, we actually can have the 3D understanding of the soil profile as well as the groundwater profile. And for, let's say, uh, flat roof, there is a ASTM standard C1153 for detecting the water pocket under the flat roof due to water pouring failure using infrared imaging. So this is what my team is doing at different site. And for window or external wall crack, we also can do another testing called spray testing with a special nozzle. When pressurized at 2.5 bar, the water that spray out is equivalent to the rain induced by wind at 30 meter per second. 30 meter per second velocity of wind is actually the wind loading of one of the Malaysia standard for the design of building envelope in Malaysia. So I would like to share a case study with you. There's a case whereby the cement screed start to fall down and splash at the road. In this case, I actually use the guideline from Hong Kong Concrete Institute to use infrared to check the delaminated area. Uh, why we can use infrared? Okay, if the water is hidden behind the cement screed or the air hidden behind the cement screed, when the wall is exposed to the solar energy, the delaminated area will become hotter. So this is the explanation, the diagrammatic explanation of how the theory is. And beside, we also deploy the guideline from Singapore to do close range inspection. So this is my infrared drone, and we even erected scaffolding to extract sample to check what is behind, uh, what is the condition of the base as well as the condition of the cement screed. We send our the cement screed sample to the lab to do water absorption test as well as composition analysis to see how many percent of cement is there. Uh, we can also do pull-off tests and knocking tests. So all this will help us to understand the reason why the lamination happened, and so that we can have a ground to take the corrective action, be it legal or be it technical. Another case, the basement with water seepage. Okay, coincidentally, above the location there is a hydrant. So I mark A, B, C, D on the wall, and I start to drip water, from the hydrant. So after 2 3 days, I go and measure the location at A, B, C, D for a period of time, and actually one day I discover the moisture level start to drop. So when I go up to the ground floor, I discover someone has closed the hydrant, shut down the hydrant fully, so no water start to drip. So I turn it on again, and the moisture level go up again. So in this case, I can say that the water actually come from the rainwater that hit the ground. To prove my case stronger, I must also use infrared imaging or moisture meter to measure the moisture level of all the pipe, because in this case, the developer say your pipe is the one. You didn't do good maintenance, so I must make sure they don't blame us on this. So I use infrared as well as moisture meter to confirm that the pipe is not leaking. Meantime, I also send the water sample to a lab to do pH test, to do E. coli test. And I discover the rainwater is neutral, but there is no or negligible level of E. coli, so it's not wastewater. And lastly, I can send it to a lab for X-ray fluorescence analysis to see the composition of the chemical in the water and get a water scientist to help me to interpret the water. And of course, if the budget is enough, I can also do tomography to see the groundwater profile or the soil profile of the leaking spot. So all this can help me to build up my case so that I know what action to be taken next. The third three case study, okay, the third case study is actually about a leaking penthouse. The leaking becomes so bad, the stalactite becomes so much, and for your information, this is only 3 to 4 years old. And by using infrared imaging, I did a night inspection. I found the water pocket, which is yellow in color. This is the hotspot at night. And when I confirm it with my capacitance type of moisture meter, which can penetrate up to 20 mm from the surface, I can confirm the water pocket. As such, and then in order to understand what is wrong, I actually remove the cement scrape and expose the waterproof. So in the 8 location that I dig, 3 didn't even have waterproof. So that's how we need to find the causation or the root cause of the problem and address it accordingly. Because without knowing all this, the problem will keep on dragging. We don't even have know the correct information. And I also send it to the lab to check the measurement of the thickness. And this is why it happened. Well, looking at this photo, we can understand that it's caused by heat, and the heat cause expansion to the slab in such a way that any waterproof which is not lack elasticity will start to crack. So I actually suggested waterproofing membrane which is white in color, which is not attached to the substrate or the slab, so that any movement in future will not stress the waterproof. And for this case, I actually recommended cation ethylene ester type of waterproofing membrane. In summary, property manager have very heavy duty in monitoring the building safety and functionality. Please go extra miles, do your homework before the contractor can fool you around. So you need to do more homework to advise the committee uh, properly and make sure try to comply to the best practices as far as practicable. Bear in mind, life cycle management is so important, and you need to have enough budget for all this. And this type of building inspection, building condition survey, is a threshold for your performance. And in the event that you do not understand, always ask and communicate. In due time, you can also contact me, if you have any problem. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. I think this is the shortest type of presentation that I have given so far, right? So I'm opening to the audiences for any question. Hello, any question from the floor?
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Kwan, for that insightful talk. We have now reached the Q&A segment where Mr. Kwan will hopefully clarify any questions you have on today's topic. So for the first question, We have a question from Miss Miza D. What are the consequences of not conducting building condition survey?
Consequences are, if bad consequences happen, uh, yeah, I think your phone will keep on ringing. Because let's say if I don't look after the slope, if I didn't clean up all the drain before the arrival of the raining season, and the flooding eventually happened, it caused some landslide or damage to your building. Well, when it comes to the investigation of who is supposed to be responsible, of course, the building manager will have a lot of responsibility, and she need to answer the why this actually happening. So it's just like building condition survey is in layman term is the sidewalk that you need to do. As a property manager, you have to always go to walk at your site to have a feeling of the uh, current state of the building condition. So before anything happen, before the block drains start to cause flooding, you need to clear it up and make sure that water do not seep into the soil and to cause another round of landslide. All this is detrimental to the building, and building manager, you will need to take the consequence of not doing building condition survey if thing happen. And in this case, the one of the worst one is the Champagne Sour South in Florida. Yeah, property manager are queuing up in the court to be questioned. So the duty of care is very heavy. Any negligence can be, yeah, the property manager can be punished. So that's my answer.
All right, so for the next question, we have a question from Mr. Firdaus Jasni Dausmuslivic. What is your advice or best practice for MBMC in order to pursue with the claim for a latent defect from the developer after expiry of DLT?
Okay, when it comes to latent defect, the law is known as Limitation Amendment Act. It is, in the nutshell, uh, latent defect is the construction fault due to negligence not involving personal injury. The time bar is 15 years and the limitation is 3 years. The time bar actually run on the date of action accrued. So, by virtue that the word negligent is used, law of tort come in. In law of tort, we need to prove causation. Causation means the root cause, and we need to find out, by digging the cement grade, by doing the lab test. For your information, only the relevant material scientists can testify material failure. Only the relevant specialist tradesman can testify workmanship. The designer can testify design failure, and these are all subjected to the rule of courts 2012, whereby uh, the qualification of the investigator, the person who do the test as well as the lab and the literature bring in to support the argument is very important to build up a case for latent defect. So I would urge you to look into a relevant investigator for your purpose or for your suspected type of defects. So latent defect, you need to follow the SOP of latent defect. And the Strata Management Act doesn't even have any provision for you to use sinking fund or maintenance fund to rectify latent defect. And of course, latent defect should not be caused by expiry of the typical service lifespan. It should not be due to fair wear and tear. It should not be due to vandalism and poor maintenance. So all this need to be taken into account when we do the investigation. I think that's my answer to it.
All right. The next question will be from Mr. Nicholas Chong. What role does a design build firm play in a building condition survey?
Building condition survey, in the case or in the context that I explained, is meant for the property manager. So it's not meant for the contractor in this case. So I think contractor, yeah, maybe some cooperation when it comes to investigation, but I think not much relevant to the design build firm mentioned by Mr. Nicholas. So the building condition survey that I explained in this context is for the post-construction stage.
I see. All right. Moving on, we have a question from Ms. Shikin Shahrul. How is the building condition survey being carried out, and how many defects are acceptable?
Yeah, we for property manager, you are required to do it with visual inspection. But if you find something is very wrong, you can always request for the third party expert to come in. So if you have some doubt with the structure or the soil, I always suggest to trigger a earlier purity inspection based on the SOP of Section 85A, Street Drainage and Building Act, so that you do the structural audit based on the SOP found or stipulated in the Street Drainage and Building Act. But let's say if it's not due to structure, like yesterday, met a group of JMB. The building is 15 years old, so they would like to know the fire safety. So, fire safety, of course, it have a lot of bomber requirement to be met, and also the electrical part is very important. Suruhanjaya Tenaga have a list of tests for the insulation of the wiring, for the aging of wiring. So I would also I suggested to my customer, please uh, please do the test prescribed by the authority so that you don't overdo or underdo it. So if the test is prescribed by the authority, we just do all the tests prescribed according to what the authorities say lah. So how many defects are acceptable? Well, it depends on how disturbing it is because let's say uh, pump breakdown, no water. I think Michigan, you cannot sit very well. Your phone will keep on ringing. People will go to your office and bang your table. So how many? Maybe it's not a big issue. Perhaps how severe is the issue? Because when the building age, the defect will keep on increasing, and the increasing amount of defect, if it is closed or if it is rectified in due time, is a good indicator. So I would not say the number as an indicator, rather the performance, how fast you can close all this type of complaint will be more meaningful and applicable. Mm. So any other question?
Uh, this will be our last question for today. It's by Mr. Farid. How frequent should a strata building be inspected?
I have listed down the different building component as well as the recommended interval for inspection based on the Hong Kong government recommendation. So I would urge you to look into that. But for water tank in specific, water tank has become a big issue now. And I would urge you to do inspection once a year using a remotely operated vehicle, the mini submarine that can go down to the water tank without discharging the water. So that inspection is not expensive, because that equipment is not expensive. But in the event something problematic is found, a diver need to go into the tank. You know, so it's not meant for ordinary people like you and me. So let the specialist do it, lah. So yeah, this is my recommendation, especially when it comes to tank. For the rest of the building component, it depends on either the authority, like Jen said, like the transformer room. It actually need to be calibrated uh, once every 2 years. So authority have their guideline. That one is based on the authority guideline. But for things that is like paint, like pipe, I think the list of recommendation that I have put up in my presentation is sufficient to cover most of the thing in the building.
All right, sir. We have this one last question which just came in by Miss Shirlene Ng. It says, Mr. Kwan, could you please elaborate on the typical measure to be taken interfloor leaking in strata building?
Yeah, I'm a speaker for interflow leakage for tribunal and COB. Uh, this is a big topic because there are so many components of in the building that can contribute to the dampness and the leakage. So if you Google I property and then my full name Kuan You Wai, you can find an article that I wrote pertaining to interflow leakage. If you go to my blog interflow leakage blogspot.com, you can also find my article about waterproofing, about flat roof. Um, yeah, I have listed out a number of them. This is such a big topic, and the Strata Management Act actually have a SOP to follow to comply with when you encounter interflow leakage complaint. So the I have summarized the whole SOP into one A4 paper chart. I hope you can look into that because it's such a huge topic. And for your information, my staff is helping me to compile the graphic of my book known as Interflow Leakage. I hope I can publish this book soon. The book, beside having the inspection method, I also have included the remediation action based on my years of experience and recommendation by different manufacturers. So I hope you can look into my articles for this further information.
All right, sir. As that was our last question, we have now reached the end of this talk show. Well, once again, I would like to thank you, Mr. Kwan, for sharing your insights and perspectives on today's topic, and also to the participants for tuning in today. I just would like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to the our upcoming CPD Continuing Professional Development Seminar, which will be going uh, on the 28th of July from 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. For more information on this, you may visit our Facebook page, which is Excel Academy of Real Estate, and follow us for more updates on our upcoming CPD seminars. We hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.